Yeah, last class I just started off. The factors influencing selection, I just told you people. There are basically two kinds of factors, two types of factors in fact. Biological factors and physicochemical factors. And among biological factors, biological half-life, absorption, and metabolism, these are the factors which I categorized. And among the physicochemical factors, these are the ones: size of the dose, ionization, pKa, aqueous solubility, partition coefficient, and stability of the drug in the GI tract. And this I quickly told you in the last class how biological half-life is important. And I just asked you some questions also. Which drugs are suitable based on the biological half-life? Any idea?
Biological half-life, sir.
Short?
Biological
Yeah. Yeah, because I told you 3 kinds of drugs may be there based on the biological half-life. One is ultra short, the next is short, and the other is long acting. The most suited in these are found to be the short acting. Okay, so that is what and this I told you, the biological half-life is in turn determined by the PK, that is kinetics of ADME. This all these things I told you. Well, and I gave some examples also. Then absorption. Okay, when I spoke about absorption, the first thing I told you is a drug. The primary prerequisites, very important, is that, okay, the drug has to get uniformly absorbed throughout the gastrointestinal tract. So here, I think I just told you, gave you some examples telling you that acidic drugs are prone to get absorbed from the stomach, and you people told basic drugs are more likely to get absorbed from the intestine. Am I correct? In case of whenever you are planning to design a controlled release dosage form, a drug delivery system, okay, the thing what you have to understand is the drug primarily should get absorbed uniformly throughout the GI tract. That's a primary requisites. Okay. And we spoke about the biological classification, and you know that BCS classification, that is, you divide the class into 4 categories based on solubility and permeability. So because solubility and permeability as the one of the features are 2 important features which is known to determine the absorption. Okay, is it clear? But that is the reason I put up this chart. And as I told you, these are the BCS classes of drugs, examples with examples I told you. Okay, class 2 are the ones which have got the solubility issues. So all the drugs have to be so all the next chart will tell you, the next poster is going to tell you. So this is a poster, very self-explanatory one. For example, as you can see there, okay, class 1, BCS class 1, as I told you, is the one which is most suited to be fabricated or developed as controlled release dosage form or sustained release dosage form. So class 2, in case the drug belongs to class 2, okay, you have to see the ways and means by which you can make it into class 1. Okay, nothing big. Class 2 are the drugs which have got solubility issues. Class 3 are the drugs which have got what kind of issues?
Solubility and low permeability, sir.
So the problem is permeability is poor. Understood? Good, ma. Excellent. Okay. So the problem with class 2 is solubility is poor. The problem with class 3 is permeability is poor. Nothing big in that. The problem with class 4 is
low solubility and low permeability.
Low soluble, low permeable.
Yeah, both issues are there. Okay. So naturally, this you can see there on the poster itself, I've just put up. So to increase your solubility, what all you're trying to do? Okay, like there are a number of techniques, and some techniques you would have already encountered, you would have done in the class, okay, in the routine class, at home also you would have done. For example, yes, you can see there. As the simplest one, what even the industries follow today is particle size reduction. It's also called as micronization. Are you able to understand? So any drug belonging to class 2, for example, if you find out what you can call it as, if you come to know that the drug is not getting absorbed properly, what they do is the first thing, what they're going to use is micronization. So micronization is the one, as you would have studied as comminution. I think I told about this. In unit operations, you would have studied size reduction. Okay, there are different types of mills. Have you heard? The comminution is a very classical one, that is size reduction. So the first approach what they try is to improve the solubility is size reduction or comminution. So you can see that is one of the approaches which you can use. And for example, in class 3, if at all a molecule belongs to class 3, okay, what is the problem with these molecules, as one of you told, okay, it is nothing but the permeability is very poor.
Permeability.
Yeah, permeability is an issue because they don't get absorbed. That is what I mean to say. Okay, so there are different reasons by which a drug may not get absorbed. There is something called a P-glycoprotein. Okay, there is something called efflux mechanisms. Okay, efflux mechanism is the one where many of the drugs are not allowed to enter into your body. Okay, is it clear? Yes, your body itself prevents the drug from entering or getting absorbed as a part of defense mechanism. It is known as efflux. That is what is known as efflux. Okay, P-glycoprotein is one such defense mechanism which may be there. Okay, which never allows certain drugs to get absorbed. Example of such drugs are anti-HIV drug, anti-cancerous drugs, so on and so forth. Is it clear? So you can add certain agents which are known as efflux inhibitors. Okay, so to prevent this, okay, in the formulation you can incorporate efflux inhibitors. I didn't put a pic here. For example, the transport from the mucosal side to the serosal side is prevented by the defense mechanism which is there in the body. Example for this is, as I told you, it is known as efflux. This is known as efflux, the prevention mechanism, whatever is there. Okay, so you can prevent this efflux, okay, by using what you can call it as efflux inhibitors. And thereby what will happen is you can ensure that more amount of drug is getting absorbed. That is what you do. That is how you convert class 3 into class 1. Is it clear? See, what will happen is body has a defense mechanism. Okay, you know that body treats certain drugs, for example, as foreign bodies. You know that, all of you? Yes? So the drug will never get absorbed from the stomach. Okay, efflux. Okay, this is known as what you can call it as efflux. Okay, the mechanism is known as the prevention of the drug from getting absorbed from the lumen of the small intestine into circulation is called as efflux. The example of such drugs are, as I told you, anti-HIV drugs are one, anti-cancerous drugs may be one. There are a good number of drugs that may fall in that category. Is it clear? So these are prevented from getting absorbed from what you can call it as the lumen of the small intestine into systemic circulation. Is it clear? Yes? So they are excreted as such. There are some certain transporters which are responsible for the efflux to happen. Example is P-glycoprotein is one such transporter. Okay. So if at all you are able to inhibit this PGP, okay, using what you can call it as efflux inhibitors, okay, then you can see that, or you can ensure that more amount of such drugs can be absorbed into systemic circulation. And any drugs, for example, which can get embedded in the lipids, okay, something like I've given an example of lipid-filled capsules, okay, they also are known to improve what is known as the absorption. And one more example is, for example, especially you can ask some people, okay, all these you should have some clinical examples. Okay, you would have encountered some patients, okay, or some patients at home you would have encountered where the absorption of the drug is quite poor. For example, most of the HIV people treatment who are undergoing this HIV treatment will have these issues. And in those cases, grape water is prescribed. Okay, Grape water is a classical example where, for example, it is known to improve the absorption of the drug by inhibiting what you can call it as the efflux mechanism. So this is what I just finally, the figures, how do you explain with figures is this, okay, as you can see there, assuming that the transit time of any drug or the dosage form through the G8 is 8 to 12 hours, the compound has an half-life of 3 to 4 hours, the absorption rate constant has to be around 0.2. Please remember this figure. Okay, it's kinetic rate equation like how you would have done in your physical pharmaceutics, first order rate constant. You would have determined, okay, something like that. So that should be around 0.2 per hour. Okay, if these conditions are met, you can ensure that 80 to 90% of the dose is getting absorbed in the transit time of 8 to 12 hours. So this statement is again there in
Yes, sir.
what you can call it as banker. Okay, but I put a concise version of that here. Okay, so sustained release formulation may benefit what you can call it as may not benefit compounds, as I told you, having an absorption window in the jejunum and duodenum. Last class I was just telling you certain what you can call it as nutraceuticals. I gave you the examples also, okay, which are transported by or which are absorbed only by transporters, which are present in jejunum and duodenum. These are known as absorption window. And one example is your anti-diabetic drug, metformin hydrochloride. So moving towards the topic, again, the next one is what you have to consider is metabolism. So just like as transporters were there, okay, last few minutes, as I was talking about transporters which were there, and some of your friends also gave an idea like some of the drugs are absorbed only from the intestine, jejunum and ileum. Very much true. There are what you can call it as good number of enzymes also along the intestinal lumen. Okay, and good number of drugs are metabolized by these enzymes. So such drugs in general are poor candidates to be developed as sustained release dosage form. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes. Such drugs which are metabolized in the lumen. Lumen means during the transit from the mucosal surface to the serosal surface. You understand the point? What I mean by mucosal to serosal? Now, from the inner surface of the intestine to the outer surface of the intestine. Is it clear? That is known as the, what you can call it as the lumen. Lumen is the opening which is there, or the tissue. So the tissue of the intestine is rich in what you can call it as many of the enzymes. So good number of drugs are metabolized by these enzymes. Some examples I've just quoted there. Alpranolol is one, which is a beta blocker, which was extensively metabolized, okay, when given as an SR, okay, usually. And high, because one more example is dopa decarboxylase, okay, which is again abundantly present in wall of the intestine, okay, which if the drug is slowly released, what will happen is a more amount of drug is metabolized. That's what is people have come to know, okay. If the drug is slowly released from the dosage form, more is the chances of metabolism, okay. And if at all the drug is, for example, they have tried to compare what you can call it as two different dosage forms of what you can call it as levodopa. Okay, one is sustained release, the other is conventional. Okay, which one is more bioavailable?
Levodopa, sir.
Levodopa. I'm just giving an example. Formulations were developed. One is the conventional. Okay, that is either form of simple tablet. The other may be a sustained release dosage form. That try to run a study where they are comparing what is known as the extent of bioavailability. Okay, which one is more bioavailable or which one is better absorbed? Simple language. So alpranolol or levodopa, if at all they are developed as conventional dosage form and they're given, and parallelly, if they are developed as sustained release formulation and given, which one is better? Okay, better absorbed. What will happen is enzymes are prone to competitive inhibition. So in case of conventional form, what's happened is, okay, because more amount of drug is released in one shot, or most of the drug gets released in one shot, the enzymes get saturated. Is more drug is getting transported from across the lumen, from the mucosal to the serosal side. Whereas in case of sustained release formulation, what's happening is the drug is released in a slow fashion and more amount of drug gets metabolized because the enzymes will never get saturated. Is it clear? So this you please remember, I have not shown anywhere pictorial representation, nothing like that, but there's a concept involved behind that. Okay, so any drug which is prone to metabolism in the intestine especially is a poor candidate for SR. That's a moral of the story.